Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the sheer, massive scale of the Aztec capital Tenochtitlan. But we're doing it with a bit of a twist. We're looking at it entirely through the eyes of the very people who destroyed it. It's kind of a wild paradox, right? The conquerors actually left us the most vivid records of just how great this city was. So let's jump in and see exactly what they found. Picture this. You're standing right alongside these battle-hardened Spanish soldiers. You've marched for months from the coast, you finally crest this mountain pass above the Valley of Mexico, and you look down. And what do you see? A massive city built directly on a lake. It's connected to the shore by these huge causeways, literally wide enough for 10 horses to ride side by side, and there are thousands of canoes just crisscrossing the water.
So there was a soldier named Bernal Diaz del Castillo, and he actually wrote down what this exact moment felt like. He said the city seemed like an enchanted vision. He even noted that some of the guys he was with, these tough veteran soldiers, were literally asking if the whole thing was just a dream. Think about that for a second. You have these guys trained for brutal warfare, absolutely stopped, dead in their tracks, just totally disoriented by the sheer beauty of the place. Now let's talk numbers, because this really puts it into perspective. Tenochtitlan had an estimated population of 200,000 people in 1519. To put that in context, that made it significantly larger than any major city in Europe at the time. We're talking bigger than Paris, London, Venice, or Seville. These soldiers were staring down at a metropolis on a scale they had literally never seen before.
Section 1. Market and Engineering, Tlatelolco and Chinampas.
So you might be wondering, how on earth did a city surrounded by shallow water manage to feed hundreds of thousands of people? Well, they engineered this massive 9,000-hectare agricultural system made up of floating gardens called chinampas. What they did was layer aquatic vegetation, mud, and soil, and then anchored the whole thing down with willow trees. Because of this, they were pulling multiple high-yield crops every single year, all while creating this vast canal network for canoe transport. The city was basically entirely self-sustaining.
60,000. Take a second to just picture a crowd that big. That is the staggering number of people who visited the adjacent Tlatelolco market every single day, just buying and selling every kind of merchandise you can imagine.
And Hernán Cortés himself actually wrote directly to the King of Spain about this. He pointed out that the main square was twice the size of the one in Salamanca. It's super telling because, even while he was actively trying to justify conquering this place to the king, Cortés just could not hide his awe. He's describing this highly regulated economy that came complete with its own court system, on-site inspectors, and really strict penalties for fraud.
Section 2. Aztec Cosmology and the Context of Sacrifice.
Now, to impartially understand this society, we really have to look at their deeply cyclical worldview. They actually believed that the previous 4 worlds had already been destroyed, and that the gods sacrificed themselves at Teotihuacan just to set our current 5th sun in motion. So in their eyes, humanity had a reciprocal duty to provide life energy, which was blood, to sustain the sun. In this cosmic contract, failing to provide that energy literally meant the end of the world.
Moving on to Section 3, the true conquest, beyond the myth.
The idea that this was just a straightforward Spanish victory, that's entirely a myth. During the 1521 siege, the Spanish force of about 900 soldiers was actually backed by a massive coalition of 100,000 indigenous warriors. The Spanish were a tiny minority. They were heavily relying on allies like the Tlaxcalans, who desperately wanted liberation from the Aztec tribute empire.
But the devastation went way beyond swords and military alliances. Smallpox arrived, and it was brutal. The disease killed an estimated 25 to 50% of the Aztec population right in the middle of the conquest. It even killed Emperor Cuitlahuac after he'd been ruling for just 80 days. Ultimately, smallpox did the most devastating work here, wiping out the city's leadership and population long before that final 75-day siege ruined the magnificent architecture.
Section 4. Temple Mayor and Erasure, Cultural Destruction.
The aftermath of the siege triggered this really rapid shift from awe to deliberate erasure. By 1529, which is just 8 years after the city fell, Bishop Zumarraga supervised the burning of 20,000 Aztec codices right there in the Tlatelolco market. They literally set the civilization's documented history on fire.
Because of those fires, today, only 15 pre-conquest Aztec codices survive in the entire world. 15. This staggering loss means that the primary voice of the Aztec people was almost entirely silenced by the colonial authorities. So, for the most part, we're left looking at this history entirely through the lens of the conquerors.
But the history wasn't totally lost. Because the Spanish built directly on top of the rubble, the ground beneath Mexico City basically became this massive underground time capsule. In February 1978, some electrical workers accidentally struck a carved stone disc depicting the moon goddess, and that unlocked the Templo Mayor site right beneath modern Mexico City. It revealed 7 nested layers of temple construction, and we are still finding things there today. Like just in 2022, they discovered a massive royal cremation platform with 10,000 offerings.
Section 5. The Cute FUT framework and narrative structure.
To understand why this specific history grips us so tightly today, we can look at it through a storytelling lens called the CUTE framework. That stands for curiosity, urgency, tension, and emotion. It's basically a way to deconstruct exactly how primary sources hook our attention.
Let's map this directly onto what we just covered. Curiosity? That's a hardened soldier wondering if a vast lake city is just a dream. Urgency is the ongoing race between modern urban development and active archaeology. Tension is Cortés admiring a culture's profound beauty while actively planning its downfall. And emotion? That's the tragic cultural loss of 20,000 burning books. This framework shows us exactly why recovering this silenced history feels so vital.
So as we look at the ruins of Tenochtitlan slowly emerging from beneath modern streets, and we think about all those voices we lost, we are left to ask ourselves this final defining thought. When a civilization's history is written by the very people who burned its books, who truly decides what we are allowed to remember?